Greetings and welcome to this next video in our series of talks on topics connected to Catholic social teaching. My name is Andrew Musgrave and I am the Director of the Catholic Social Action Office for the Archdiocese of Cincinnati. Our topic today is the dignity of work and the rights of workers. This topic is, I think, often overlooked or maybe not known as much about, but it's actually one of the first topics that the Catholic Church addressed when you look at the body of Catholic social teaching. Back in 1891, Pope Leo XIII wrote his document Rerum Novarum, or On the Condition of Labor, which is looked at as the first document of Catholic social teaching. In that document, he addressed the systems of communism and capitalism, both of which he saw as having the potential to do good for workers, but both of which also having the potential to not honor the dignity of rights in workers. This theme, the dignity of workers and the rights of workers, deals with the fact that we believe that as co-creators with God in the building up the kingdom on earth, we have a responsibility to be able to work and contribute to society, and we have the right to have work that is family and life sustaining. This means that we have work that is safe, that allows us to fulfill our vocation, that allows us to take care of our families, and allows us to be part of the broader community, which is again working to build up the kingdom of God here on earth. There are myriad issues, lots of topics, far more than we could possibly address in one talk. But today, I've reached out to Brennan Grayson, who is the Executive Director of the Cincinnati Interfaith Workers Center, and he has brought together a number of really talented, passionate, and experienced folks to talk about a few different issues that relate to the dignity of work and the rights of workers. And so I'm going to turn it over to Brennan and let him lead the rest of our discussion.
Great. Well, welcome everyone. We are really glad to be with you today and are thankful to Archbishop Schnur and to Andrew Musgrave with Catholic Social Action for convening this group to talk about economic justice for all and the dignity of work and some of the specific issues that arise for working people and some of the issues that our elected leaders take on or don't take on. And we have a group today that is going to very quickly, very briefly, give you a snapshot of what workers' dignity and the dignity of work means to them and their co-workers, and also talk a little bit about the decisions that policymakers can make that can uplift working people, and also the decisions that policymakers can make that suppress wages, reduce worker safety, and undermine this real core principle in the teachings having to do with the dignity of work and working people. So we have several people here who are ready to talk, and we'll be introducing them one at a time. So I'll be asking a wide range of speakers today to say a few words, and I'll introduce them one at a time. Our first speaker today is David McDonald, and David is an organizer with the Cincinnati Interfaith Workers Center, and he is coming to this presentation live from Walnut Street and Over the Rhine, out front of the Catholic Worker House. Many people in the region may know the Catholic Worker House, and David has a story to tell about his experience at the Catholic Worker House and what it meant to him to be welcomed into that ministry. So go ahead, David.
Hey, everybody doing? My name is David. The experience I had with the Worker House, very good. The first time I heard about the Worker House, I was confused about the whole situation and them helping me, and taking me to stay in there for about 3 months. So when I came, I felt the vibe. It was a good vibe. It wasn't one of them vibes that when you go somewhere, they kick you out. I came in, they gave me good housekeeping, they showed me respect, and the months I was here, I learned a lot. Like, how to talk to people, how to appreciate yourself. Don't let nobody take you down because you're in a bind, you down low. And one thing about this place, they have a lot of classes to take in there to help you out with your situation from drugs down to poverty. And they help. And with them helping me, make me more bigger and better than who I am today. Because when I come out here, I look at the Catholic House, open the door for me to help people out, send them here. Because I'm out here every day with people who are in the same situation I was in. And that hurts. You know, I hide my pains with my smile, but behind closed door, I do cry. And when I come out here and come see people from the Catholic Worker House, I come and talk to them. I appreciate them. The vibe is so good, and like I lost a lot of good people here because it was like 3 people who used to work here. I used to come to and help out with the Sunday dinner or Sunday breakfast and stuff like that. Since they ain't here, I basically backed off because I didn't know who was the new coordinator of the worker center because I feel like I'm an alumni here. So I appreciate the people here. I appreciate the clients here because we sit and talk about everybody's problems. It's just not mine, it's everybody. Because if you have a problem, same person had the same problem you got, but in a different situation. So when you talk to each other, you come up with plans, how to do better about yourself, how to connect with each other, how to network. And the biggest thing I learned from here, and I still did that, and I'll be trying to do it out here, is motivate people, not to be depressed, how to uprise yourself as a human being. And when they came to me that about the Catholic Worker House, it was a good thing. Now I'm going around spreading young men, young women who need help out here. And I'm trying to go farther with it.
Thank you, David, for that.
Okay.
And for those of you who don't know, the Catholic Worker House has been open for decades. It's near the corner of Walnut and Liberty in the Over the Rhine neighborhood. And it has welcomed people off the streets, people who are struggling with employment, and has an open door policy where workers can get back on their feet. And so, you know, one of the things that we really want to talk about today is the importance of living wages. You can't take care of yourself without a living wage. And so our first speaker today after David is Fred Lampe from the Cincinnati Building Trades. And I want to welcome Fred to say a few words about the importance of living wages and how living wages become a reality for workers today. Go ahead, Fred.
Thank you, Brennan. Thank you, Andrew. And I'd also like to thank the Archbishop for allowing this online forum that brings the dignity of work, that brings that issue to light and gives us an opportunity to discuss it. So the 2 things I'm going to talk about are living wages and prevailing wage. Of course, living wages would be any segment of the economy. And as Secretary of the Greater Cincinnati Building and Construction Trades Council, prevailing wage is particularly dear to my heart. But let's start with living wages. And you've probably heard a recent effort with $15 an hour being a threshold as a living wage. And it certainly could be, but the fact that our employers are scheduling employees for less than what is required to provide health care, many of them are only working 30 hours a week. $15 an hour is not a significant wage. It provides for no health care and it provides for no retirement. So that's the focus I want to make on that. Make sure whoever you are looking into voting for would improve upon that and allow for a worker to provide health care for his or her family. And then prevailing wage is more it addresses the construction industry, and what that does is it's the union wage that's set for a local area. and it is protected federally by a Davis-Bacon law, and that is where so when a government entity provides resources to build a project, the prevailing wage is guaranteed, no matter if the contractor that is awarded the project is union or it goes to an open shop contractor. So I like to say that we represent both union workers and non-union because, you know, we're providing them with a set wage. And unfortunately, in the private sector, a lot of times it's a race to the bottom, we call it, where those wages are not protected. Safety is another issue that is dealt with collective bargaining agreements. Many times there are committees with both management and labor addressing these situations. So I don't want to take up too much time. I guess I would ask anyone watching this video, you know, to call the elected official, whether it's an incumbent or a candidate, and ask them where they stand on the dignity of work and living wages and prevailing wages. So again, thank you, Andrew, for hosting this, and we can move on to the next speaker.
All right, thank you, Fred. Thank you, Fred Lampy, very much. The next speaker we have today is Bob DeRose. Bob DeRose is a former board member for Interfaith Worker Justice, and he is an employment attorney representing workers of all types, of all industries for many years now. We welcome you, Bob, to the program.
Thank you, Brennan. Thank you, everyone, for having me speak. As Brennan says, I limit my practice to the representation of workers. Our firm, based here in Columbus, but we have a national practice, represents labor unions, people who are hurt on the job, and my particular focus is on wage and hour and dealing with cases of wage theft. And that's particularly what I would like to talk about here, is how the dignity of work is affected by wage theft that you find at every strata of the workforce, from those who make minimum wage to those who make well in excess of minimum wage. Wage theft tends to be the first thing that companies attack. Wages that are, I mean, when times are tough, and we're certainly in a world where companies are struggling and instances of wage theft are on the rise. But wage theft doesn't just come from what happens with the employer. Oftentimes wage theft can be systemic. And, you know, this series, I Vote Catholic, is important on that message because, you know, how your elected representatives, what their views on the protections that are given to workers and the way those protections are changed administratively or at the agency or by the executive branch are important. And so as you think about how you vote, you should think about and challenge those that represent you or those who want your vote, how they come down on certain issues. And one of the ones that's sort of hot out there and going on a fast track right now, the Department of Labor is trying to undo the basic definition of a worker in the United States, the difference between being an independent contractor and an employee subject to all the rights and protections that are afforded by state and federal governments. In 2015, under the prior administration, there was a memo that was put out that said, hey, the rules that govern the protections on how an individual is paid for the work they perform should assume that all workers are covered, and that that means that if a worker is on a job site, the law should assume that they're an employee unless the employer can prove otherwise. You know, currently, what's going through the administration and through the Department of Labor is a change in that regard, a change in that it's going to be tougher to prove that you're an employee. Burden of proving whether you're an employee or not towards the worker, the affected worker. And I think that's a significant That's a significant change. That's a very big paradigm change in the workplace. So, you know, I don't want to belabor. I only have a limited amount of time, Brennan, but I want to put out there for those that vote Catholic to challenge those that seek your vote or that want your vote again, to say how that process, the process of changing the very core definition, how the church is teaching on the dignity of work.
Thank you, Bob, for that. And we turn now to Dennis Olson. Dennis Olson is with the United Food and Commercial Workers. And we've invited Dennis to talk to us a little bit about the dignity of work and how different policy decisions impact, you know, worker safety and health and other things related to folks in the food industry and food systems. Welcome, Dennis.
Thank you, Brennan, and thanks for the invitation to be here. So I'm going to just start out from the bird's eye view here, the 50,000 foot level, and I just want to start out by saying we at the United Food and Commercial Workers Union, we come at this from the perspective that worker rights are human rights recognized by the United Nations through their International Labor Organization conventions. And in a nutshell, what those rights are the right to freedom of association, to organize a union, and to bargain collectively for better wages and working conditions, free from retaliation or intimidation. I think that last point is sort of the crux of the issue, the free from intimidation and retaliation being a key point that we believe in. And, you know, I just want to say that, you know, whether it was FDR leading the charge for our first bedrock labor laws, as was mentioned, like the Davis-Bacon Act was one of them, but basically that implement the right to organize. That is, you know, the UN can't impose these rights, right? The nation states have to do that. So our major first stab at that was FDR and the labor laws that were passed during the New Deal as a first attempt to implement those. But they're also universal. And when you say universal, what comes to mind is I just saw a documentary on Ronald Reagan, who, you know, whatever you think about him, one of the things that he said was during the Solidarność uprising in Poland, he basically acknowledged that unions were a bulwark of freedom. And he was a member of the union, the Screen Actors, he was the president of the Screen Actors Guild. So he believed in collective bargaining, even though he was a conservative. And he also, I think, very adroitly saw that it's a fundamental human right that he fought for, and that is still an issue to this day with our trade policies that do not view that workers' rights as human rights, and in fact put corporate rights ahead of worker rights, to the degree to which our trade policy now allows manufacturers to relocate in China and Mexico, both countries that ban free and independent trade unions. And so I think that's important to keep in mind. And for us, you can talk about fair wages and you can talk about worker protections and retirement and healthcare, but in the long run, if the right to organize isn't acknowledged and respected, then we're never going to be able to lock those rights in. You know, if an employer may give you a wet raise or give you a healthcare benefit this year, but without a union contract and based on the right to organize and collective bargaining, that person can, you know, that wage can be taken away the next year by the next CEO that comes in. So that's why it's democracy in the workplace, that first of all, workers have to vote the union in a democratic vote, and then they have to negotiate, you know, have a representative negotiated contract that then once again the workers have to vote on that. And that is fundamental democracy in the workplace. And without the right to the right to organize, workers aren't able to ensure that those other rights to better wages and working conditions are maintained. It's only by empowering workers in the workplace that they're going to be able to defend their rights, and nobody else can defend their rights like the workers themselves.
Well, thank you, Dennis, for that.
Brennan, I don't know. I didn't get in. I don't know how much time I had left there. I could go into the COVID stuff some at some point, but we could also wait for question and answers, and I could try to hit on it there.
Why don't we do that? And I think what you had said about the importance of democracy in the workplace, I think opens up a nice segue for Teresa Moore. I want to welcome Teresa Moore from the Carpenters Union to this talk. And, you know, Teresa, I hope you can say a few things about the importance of having a voice in negotiating wages and what that means for equity at work. We hear a lot about equity now, and that's an important discussion we're having. And if you could talk to those, you know, who tuned in here a little bit about how does equity actually happen in the workplace for women, for people of color, for people of all backgrounds, and what is kind of the best way to assure that you've got a fair shake at work. Go ahead, Teresa. And you're on mute. If you unmute yourself, or Andrew, you're in. Go ahead.
All right. Thanks so much. I'm glad to be here today. Wanted to talk a little bit about equal pay, you know, since the Lilly Ledbetter Act. We haven't seen a whole lot move forward that we'd like to see in that. But the importance of helping the underserved, and that's your females, your minorities, your displaced workers. We have so much of that going on right now. And having that pay equality and opportunity for that, not that they're going in and negotiating themselves, but when they go in as represented and not standing alone and with representation, then they realize that equal pay and they're able to you know, take care of their families, add value, and see gains in their lifestyles and family. And you're seeing a little bit more of the diversity and inclusion conversations right now, but having been with the Sisters and the Brotherhood with the Carpenters Union, that was started in 1998. And so it's been a while, but we are seeing a lot of improvement for that. But when you look at who's supporting those issues, you need to look at what they've done in the past, not just when they're running for re-election or running for election. And listen to what they're saying when do they include that in the conversation? Because for so long it was not, and that's what we've been trying to do with the Sisters and the Brotherhood of the Carpenters Union, is bring that to light. And a lot more facilities are implementing those policies within the buildings. Well, now we're having the conversation of how about those of us that are building the buildings, and that it's not just a man's world, that we have a right to be there to provide for our family regardless. You know, I love being a carpenter because I love to build things, and that's what I wanted to do when I grow up. And I watch a lot of people who have come from maybe incarceration, folks that have been, they've grown up in poverty, or just situations that haven't afforded them much opportunity, and encouraging them to have a high school diploma or a GED, and coming into the apprenticeship program and being able to work up to not just a living wage, but a union wage with benefits. I've seen so many people turn their lives around, and they've turned it around, and their children have a new beginning. So we need to look at, if you want to help the underserved, it's a generational thing. And so we need to look at these officials that we're selecting without a lot of term limits, we need to make sure that folks that are in there are bringing our issues to the table. Not a whole lot of that recently, but that's what a lot of the unions have been working for, is to bring that conversation up to folks that are running for office. So when you have those officials that will not only put things in place to set a standard, they also have to be that official that will help keep fighting for that standard. And if you want to see the economy grow, if you want to see our neighborhoods improve, and you know, there's a lot of money flying around, and you know, with the wage theft and that kind of stuff, those taxes aren't coming back in, funding the states and municipalities. So it's going to take all of us. And if we don't have that pay equality, we're going to have the haves and the have-nots. And that just seems to go against the conversation that we're having today.
Well, Teresa, thank you for that. And I want to let people know that there are many ways that our policymakers can help keep this principle that Teresa talked about, which is equality and fighting discrimination on the job. I mean, a lot of us think about discrimination now. There's a lot of talk in the news about how the police handle folks of different races and different backgrounds. There's a lot about you know, the ways in which different institutions can fight discrimination. And I think that one of the core teachings that you'll see in Economic Justice for All, the pastoral letter from 1986, is a real commitment from the church to highlight these issues of discrimination, because if we are all being paid fairly, without regard to our gender and to our race and so forth, then we can all feel that we're being honored for that contribution. And I appreciate you bringing that to light, Teresa. And you know, one of the ways that all these issues fit together here is that we have, you know, a commitment in our community and in our politics to fighting discrimination. But what some of the speakers have talked about is also how a union contract and the supporting the rights to organize can help make sure that this right to, you know, a workplace that's free of discrimination in wages and safety and promotions, it helps create a level playing field so that no matter how you enter into the workplace with your race, your gender, your other backgrounds, you'll be treated fairly, and you'll be treated in a way that is in accordance with what was negotiated. And so you have those two protections there. And you know, kind of continuing on this theme of equality and the importance of having a level playing field at work, I want to welcome Manuel Perez from the Cincinnati Interfaith Workers Center to the conversation. Hello, Manuel.
Hi, Brennan. Hi, everyone. My name is Manuel Perez. I'm an immigrant who came from Guatemala here in Cincinnati, Ohio, and came to better opportunities for myself and my family. And unfortunately, in part of my life, who connect with the Workers Center, the organization, our work now, was a stolen wage situation, a human situation happened. But I don't came just talk to about myself, and I want to talk to about the dignity of work, how important is we all humans and all have a dignity. And of course, if we work, we want to respect our dignity like a human being at the workplace. And it's important issue happen, but it's connecting with one of the important rights to me like a worker is health and safety condition at the workplace. And we know many organizations in our city, like Worker Center, provide health and safety trainings, including in our case, OSHA 10 for construction worker in Spanish is a lot of needs in our communities. But don't matter you have this information, an accident is often happen you don't expect. It's probably you working now and accident happen few seconds later. But this means affect your life like a worker. And when accident happen at workplace, your life and the life of people around you, including your family, change a lot. And this is the reason we know we're familiar with worker compensation system here in Ohio and other places, how important is these systems. And unfortunately, when you an immigrant or refugee, you don't know too much about these rights you have, and it's hard to navigate. But just to illustrate a little bit, the workers' comp is very important, just to guarantee the worker if he have an accident at the workplace, they have the cover of medical expenses, including therapies, or also have a % of money to survive after the accident. Is what we know, and as part of our rights and dignity at work, have the minimum to cover our own expenses. But unfortunately, in the last recent years, I know around 10 years ago, there's a lot of attacks happened to the workers' compensation here in Ohio, sorry. And sometimes the legislators who have a personal interest of group interests or make changes, and someone they try to attack workers using different strategies, using like kind of good names for laws, like for example, right to work. Everybody have right to work, but under this nice name, they put legislations against the worker, and we know this happened. And the same thing happened with workers' compensation recently. They tried to take out of workers' comp undocumented workers. But in this go and come and go in this play is every worker loss. Before we have 2 years to, when accident happen at workplace, to file a complaint. But focusing on undocumented workers, they changed legislation, and now every worker in Ohio, don't matter have documents or no, have just 1 year to have a workers' comp case. And this happened in our communities. And this is the important, we in our community, and I speak from my community of immigrant and also like a faith person. I was born and growing up in a Catholic home or house with my parents, but they teach me very well about how important it is take care of workers. You know, it's one of them. I remind, they say workers are worth to their pay. It's important. And again, I a person of faith, and I believe in justice. And this is the call. The work and dignity at work is important for our families and our communities. If we want a good community and a strong community, we want to take care of workers. It's important. And I'm talking about faith, but also talking about laws. The labor laws here in this country say don't matter you have documents or you don't have documents, you are a worker. If you are a worker, you have rights. And of course, it's important to take care about this. Thank you, Brennan.
Manuel, thank you very much for that. And, you know, a lot of us here have family in nursing homes and retirement homes. And we have the good fortune to have Kate Bishop from SEIU 1199, who would like to share a few words about her experience and about the importance of recognizing the dignity of all workers and what they contribute to the health and welfare of our community. Go ahead, Kay.
Hi, I want to thank you for this opportunity. I'm Kay Bishop. I'm a member of SEIU District 1199, West Virginia, Kentucky, Ohio, and I work in healthcare. I think it's important that people have a right to have a union and a livable wage. I think it's important that we really get the word out about how your vote really counts, where for a union or if you're for an elective official and everything. And we all need to make sure that we follow the whole ballot down and stuff, when you're voting and stuff like that. But I think that we here in Cincinnati, we are the 4th largest city in the country that has poverty and stuff. If we don't have a livable wage in this city and stuff, how can we take care of our family? If you don't have where you're not going to get in trouble if you do want a union and stuff, how are we going to do this and stuff? And I think with having a union, I have a right to have a conversation about what goes on with me and how I work and take care of my residents and stuff like that. We have rights to have like health and safety committees and stuff like that with our union and everything. And it's not just all about what I make now, especially what's going on now in this country. You really have to have rights to take care of yourself because we have families too. And I want to be able to take care of my work, my clients, my residents and stuff, but I also want to be able to go home safely and take care of my family and stuff. And I think with the union, that's dignity. That gives me the right to challenge that employer who's not following those rules and stuff like that. I've been fortunate to belong to service employees, and I can have those conversations with my boss. Not, how do I want to say this? Just having straightforward conversation and not really having to worry about being put back down, like go back, we know what's right here and stuff. I mean, I don't know all the answers and all that, but I also know that we have got to have the unions and stuff and the facilities and that. I know we have to have a livable wage. I can't be worrying about what bill I'm going to pay if I can afford to take my child to daycare, and who's going to take care of that child if I can't afford to pay the bills and stuff. And especially what's going on now with healthcare. If I don't have the money for healthcare, then what's going on. And with the way it's going down now, with who we elect and everything, I don't see that. And I know I'm all over the ballpark, but I really think it's important that people like myself step up. This is a challenge to me. This is a new thing, being on tape and stuff like that. I'm used to being able to stand up, say what I'm going to say, and move on. But I think we all need to take a step forward and say, this is not fair what's going on with the politicians and the way it's going down. And that vote is so important that we go and we make sure that we're registered to vote and we vote. And look into seeing what the unions can do for you and stuff. But the politicians in this country need to be held accountable for the way they're treating the workers and their families and stuff, and the clients in the nursing homes and stuff. If you can't take care of the people, then you don't need to be a politician. Bottom line. If you don't think workers have a right to have a union, to have a say in what goes on when I'm working in these nursing homes and stuff, without being, fired, abused by verbal or whatever. I think it's very important that we all look at this whole thing. And like I said, I know I'm all over the ballpark with this right now, but I really think it's important that we all stand up, we vote, we hold the politicians and the employers accountable for what goes on.
Okay, I can't think of a better way to end this program than with your rousing virtual speech. It's so important that you take to heart what Kay says and to commit to vote and commit to educate yourself as a voter. And we hope that everyone here had the opportunity to share a little bit about their perspective on why, workers and the rights of workers and fundamental human rights are so important to themselves personally, but also why it matters to you out there listening to this video. And we hope to, provide some links on voter education that Andrew can hopefully share somewhere in the program notes, so that if you want to take the time, and we hope you will be inspired to take the time to find out where the different people you're voting for stand on the issues that were raised in this talk so powerfully by Manuel and Dennis and Teresa and Bob and Fred and David. We hope that you'll run down the record, and you'll also call your elected leaders and find out where are they on these important issues of the day, like worker safety and health, prevailing wages, living wages, the right to organize, fair trade policies. And, I want to come back around before we close to what Bob mentioned. This is about the rights of and the dignity of work and workers. And there are a lot of games that the political leaders and their lobbyists play to trick people out of what they deserve. And there are always new tricks coming down the pike, and knowing, that a lot of people could be deprived of their right to workers' comp, their right to unemployment insurance, just because somebody waves a wand and says, well, you're not an employee anymore. You're in business for yourself. Go fend for yourself. I can't think of a more just a terrible challenge that working people face, just to be recognized and just to be honored as an employee with rights. There are many challenges that people are facing, and we're thankful that we have a place where we can gather to share some of this important information with you all. And again, we want to thank the Archdiocese and Archbishop Schnoor and Andrew for having us here today. And I can't close this session without taking a moment to thank and to recognize the passing of Archbishop Polarchnik. He passed away this year, and is somebody who is just took the plight of working people and made it into something that he just took personally. And we're thankful for his legacy here in our city and in our region, and just want to take a moment to remember him and be thankful for the time he had here in our community. So with that, Andrew, we turn it back over to you.
Well, thank you so very much, Brennan and Kay, Teresa, Manuel, David, Bob, Dennis. You all just did such a phenomenal job of highlighting so many of the issues that are so important for the dignity of work and the rights of workers. One of the key statements, and Dennis kind of referenced this in his talk, one of the key statements that we talk about is that the economy exists to serve workers, not the other way around. And that at the forefront of what we do, it must be respecting people, the dignity of people, and their right, again, to have a job that is dignified, that honors who they are as a person, allows them to work safely, and allows them to work in a job that provides for them and allows them to provide for their families. And again, you all just did a phenomenal job of addressing any of the issues that are a part of that. So I will close by again thanking you and reiterating what Kay said. The best way for us to make sure that the dignity of all people is honored and respected is to vote for those folks on the entire ballot, from the president all the way down to city council and everyone in between, to make sure that those people for whom we vote, we don't pick them because of the party with which they are affiliated, but we pick them based on how they respect the dignity of all people and honor the dignity and the life of all folks. So make sure you're keeping an eye on that and doing that work so that you can vote with your faith and vote to respect the dignity of all people. So again, thank you all for being here. Thank you for those of you who are listening for taking the time to listen, and God bless.